When Natalie Pierce, a 28-year-old graphic designer, landed a new job in a quiet town called Marshbrook, she felt it was the fresh start she needed. She found a cheap, vintage apartment downtown, a tall Victorian-era building sandwiched between crumbling brick shops and a church no one seemed to attend. The listing said, affordable, peaceful, long-term tenants only. Apply in person to the landlord. Natalie should have known something was wrong when she met Mr. Merrick. He looked like a photo gone pale. His skin waxy, hair slicked down unnaturally, and his smile fixed like a mannequin. He never blinked while speaking. No parties, no overnight guests, no pets, and you must be inside before 10:13 p.m. sharp, he said, handing over the keys. Natalie laughed nervously, thinking it was some weird local quirk. What happens after 10:13? Rent becomes non-negotiable, Merrick replied, still smiling. She thought it was a joke. She was wrong. The building was silent, always. Natalie quickly noticed that none of the other tenants spoke, not a single greeting. They only shuffled in and out of their units. Eyes down, movements stiff, mechanical, like sleepwalkers. She heard things at night. Floorboards creaking in rhythm, heavy dragging sounds in the hallway, and something scratching inside the walls. One night, while retrieving a fallen key under her radiator, she discovered something strange. A row of nail marks on the floorboards, deep and desperate, as if someone had been clawed away from the door. Worse, she noticed something behind her bathroom mirror, a small crack in the plaster that revealed a peephole, one that looked in, not out. Part 3. The Past Tenant. Curiosity led her to research the building's history. The apartment had belonged to a woman named Leah Dawson, a music teacher who disappeared 5 years ago. Her case was labeled unresolved. The official report claimed she vanished in the middle of the night. No forced entry, no signs of struggle. Natalie checked her own floor plan. Leah's old unit was hers. That night, she left her phone recording while she slept. In the morning, she reviewed the footage and found a man's voice whispering from inside her closet. "You're not supposed to be here. He won't like it." When she opened the closet that morning, she found a single photograph stuck to the inside wall. Leah, standing beside Mr. Merrick. But Merrick looked exactly the same, not a day older. Part 4. The Rent You Pay in Flesh. One evening, Natalie broke the rules. She invited her friend Rachel over. Rachel joked about the creepy landlord and laughed off the strict curfew. At 10:16 p.m., the power in the building cut out. The lights flickered once, then silence. The knock at the door was soft, rhythmic, not from the hallway, but from inside the walls. Then Rachel screamed. Something dragged her toward the kitchen, smashing dishes as she clawed the linoleum. Natalie rushed to help, but the lights blinked again, and Rachel was gone. In her place, written on the steamed glass of the microwave, 1 tenant per unit. She ran to Merrick's unit, desperate for help. He was waiting for her, standing still in the hallway, as if he'd never left. "You broke the lease," he said. "What are you?" she shouted. He smiled wider than before. "I'm the only thing keeping them in." Part 5. Below the floorboards. Natalie knew she had to leave, but each time she tried, the exit changed. The hallway stretched longer. The stairs led to the roof instead of the ground floor. Time warped. Clocks ran backwards. She woke up each morning in the bed she fell asleep in, even after packing her bags. She began leaving notes for herself in the mirror. "Do not trust him. They're trapped in the walls." Burn it. She found a trapdoor under the carpet in the hallway, hidden beneath years of paint and plaster. It led to a basement that wasn't on the blueprints. There, she found rows of old IDs, wallets, driver's licenses, and jars of teeth, neatly labeled with dates. In the far corner, she saw a shrine, candles melted over bones, and a cracked photograph of a younger Merrick, standing with what looked like his mother, a cruel-eyed woman dressed in black, surrounded by dozens of children who looked dead behind the eyes. Carved in the wall above the shrine, "Pay your rent in blood or memory." Part 6. The Rent Collector. Natalie tried to warn the others. She banged on her neighbors' doors, pleaded with them. One woman, Mrs. Kettering from 3B, cracked her door just an inch. "You'll only make him angry," she whispered. "He's feeding her. The house isn't haunted, it's possessed." That night, the rent collector came. A hideous figure, 7 feet tall, face wrapped in rags, dragging chains behind it. It came for Mr. Caldwell in 2A. Natalie watched through the keyhole as Caldwell screamed. The collector wrapped its chains around his face and pulled. Silence returned. In the morning, 2A was clean and freshly painted. A "For Rent" sign hung on the door. Part 7. Natalie fights back. She decided to fight. Natalie gathered the old photos, blueprints, and ID cards and confronted Merrick at his apartment. He was expecting her. "I was hoping you'd resist," he said calmly. "It's always more satisfying." "You're not human," she spat. "Not anymore," he replied. "The house feeds on stories, on suffering. I'm just the landlord." He opened his chest like a door, literally. Inside were dozens of beating hearts, none of them his. Some were still screaming. Natalie fled, down into the basement, through the maze of bone-lined halls, until she reached the furnace. She tossed in the shrine, the landlord's old journal. The house shrieked. The walls cracked. The rent collector burned. But Merrick didn't die. He appeared in the flames, charred and smiling. "You'll have to do better than that. You're not the first to try." Part 8. The Hidden Room. Weeks passed. The building grew quieter. Natalie pretended to obey the rules, but searched for a way out. In Leah Dawson's files, she discovered plans for a hidden 7th unit, sealed decades ago behind bricks in the attic. It was called Unit 0. She broke through the bricks with a hammer. Inside, dust and darkness. On the walls, names etched in blood. All the tenants who had ever lived in the building. Most were crossed out. All except hers and Leah's. A small box sat in the center of the room. Inside was a cassette tape, labeled "Final Notice." She played it. The voice was Leah's. "If you're hearing this, he hasn't killed you yet. That means he wants you to become T." That's what the house does. It chooses its vessel. You can either die or take his place. Natalie dropped the tape. Behind her, Merrick stood in the doorway, his face cracking, skin flaking off like porcelain. "Time to renew the lease," he whispered. Part 9. Lease Renewal. Natalie ran, through the halls, past her neighbors, now frozen like dolls. She burst into her apartment, tore open the walls, and discovered a tunnel. Not of brick, but of flesh and root, pulsing and breathing. It led her beneath the building, into a vast underground chamber where dozens of former tenants were bound by chains, feeding a massive, rotting entity. A corpse the size of a house, the real witch, Merrick's mother. Her mouth opened slowly as she whispered in many voices, "Be my landlord, set me free. I'll make you forget pain. I'll make you forget everything." Natalie screamed and stabbed herself in the leg with a piece of glass to stay grounded. She refused to. She lit the tunnel on fire, using every piece of cloth and fuel she could find. The witch roared. The house trembled. And the last thing Natalie saw, before blacking out, was Merrick melting into the floor, reaching out and whispering, "We always return." 6 months had passed. In a different town, Larchfield, a historic but unlisted building suddenly appeared on Elm Street. No records, no construction permits, just a finished, immaculate Victorian structure overnight. Real estate blogs called it the Phantom Property. Locals were skeptical, but the desperate, they came. The "For Rent" sign appeared in the window, and at the front door stood Natalie, hair perfectly parted, dressed in black, expressionless. No pets, no guests, and you must be in before 10:13 p.m. Each tenant saw a version of Natalie that suited their trust. To one, she looked like a kind landlord. To another, a quiet woman who wouldn't ask questions. But none saw the faint black veins crawling up her wrists. She wasn't herself anymore. Not fully. Something had stayed with her. Something that had rewritten the terms of the lease. The first tenant was a man named Tobias Ray, a recently divorced father of 2 who needed somewhere cheap and quiet to regroup. He moved into Unit 1C. The first week was normal. Clean air. Reliable plumbing. The walls even smelled faintly of lavender. But then the hallway lights began flickering in threes. Tobias would wake up with bruises he couldn't explain. At night he heard a baby crying, even though no children lived in the building. On the 13th night, he broke curfew by 5 minutes after rushing home from work. That night, his daughters came to visit, except they had died in a car crash 2 years ago. He opened the door to find them on the floor, playing with dolls. The dolls were made of teeth. One daughter looked up and whispered, "Daddy, you signed it in blood." And then they vanished. Natalie watched from the hallway, her face blank. "You broke the lease," she said softly. Tobias screamed. His apartment was empty by morning. Frez. "For Rent" sign rehung. But Natalie wasn't completely lost. Somewhere inside her, the real Natalie was still fighting. Every night, between 3:12 and 3:16 a.m., she regained full control. In that window, she left clues around the building. Chalk marks under doorknobs, mirror messages that faded by dawn, symbols drawn in salt under the stairwell. One tenant noticed, Ivy Moreno, a skeptical film student who recorded everything. Ivy began investigating the building, capturing night whispers, shadow figures moving between rooms, and the rent collector dragging something down the elevator shaft. She decoded Natalie's marks and discovered the building was built on top of other buildings, layers of old foundations, each destroyed after horrific incidents. She found a crawl space behind the laundry room, with dozens of property leases signed in blood, each dating back more than 100 years, all with the same clause. In exchange for tenancy, I offer memory, flesh, or soul. And the signature was always different, but the handwriting was always the same. What Ivy didn't know was that the witch, Merrick's mother, the origin of the curse, had not died. She had taken root inside the building itself. She no longer needed a physical body. The house was her body. The pipes were veins. The locks were her bones. The light fixtures, her eyes. She whispered through faucets, sighed through vents, and laughed through electrical hum. And she had a plan for Natalie. Natalie would be her firstborn landlord, a perfect host, born not from blood, but from trauma. Each tenant fed her, and Ivy was getting too close. One night, Ivy found a false wall in the attic, leading to a staircase that descended endlessly. Down there, the house changed. It bled. It breathed. Photos of old tenants lined the walls, all blank-faced. Some were half erased. At the bottom, Ivy found a giant pulsing heart embedded in the wall, stitched into the building's structure. On it were hundreds of names carved in bone. Her name was the last one, still unfinished. Before she could flee, Natalie appeared, eyes white, veins black, hands dripping with ash. But for 1 second, her voice changed. "Burn it. Find the mirror room." Then she screamed in 2 voices. The witch was fighting back. With the help of another tenant, Omar, a conspiracy theorist with knowledge of occult lore, Ivy discovered the mirror room, a hidden chamber behind the building's boiler. Every surface was mirrored glass, but the reflections didn't match reality. They showed what happened, what could happen, and what the house wanted to happen. One mirror showed Natalie, as a child, in the same building, hiding in a closet from her mother. Another showed Merrick, young, tortured, watching as the witch buried a woman alive under the kitchen tiles. The mirrors were the house's memory, and Ivy smashed them all. Each shatter echoed like a scream across the halls. Walls cracked, the lights bled red, and Natalie, wherever she was, let out a howl of rage and freedom. Scene 7. The eviction notice. With the house weakening, Ivy made one last move. She rewired the fire alarms to trigger a gas explosion. But just before lighting the match, Natalie appeared. Not possessed, not corrupted, crying, human. "Don't destroy it," she whispered. "You'll release her." "There's only one way to end it. You have to trap her in a new vessel. Use me." The building shook violently. The rent collector howled in the distance. The witch screamed through every vent. And then Ivy made her choice. The explosion rocked 3 city blocks. The building collapsed in flames. Bodies were found, but no survivors. No Natalie, no Ivy. Only fragments of mirrors. And one charred key. In another town, in a different state, a new Victorian building appeared. Locals called it the Elmhurst. It had no deed, no builder, no power company records. But a young woman was seen entering it with a suitcase. She put up a sign in the window, "Affordable rooms for rent. Long-term tenants only." And when a curious couple knocked, she opened the door. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were hollow. No parties, no guests. And you must be in before 10:13 p.m. The new building, the Elmhurst, stood silent on the edge of a dead-end road in Edgevale. A town with no recent developments, no growing population, and no logical reason for a massive Victorian property to exist. Yet there it was, fully restored. No noise, no traffic, no workers, just a building that shouldn't be there. And Natalie, no longer fully human, stood behind the front desk. Her smile was rehearsed, her posture mannequin perfect. Behind her eyes, a war. The witch was stronger now, feeding on the memories of the burnt building, now infused into the Elmhurst. But Natalie was still in there, somewhere, leaving warnings in subtle ways. The sign-in ledger was written in mirror script. The Wi-Fi password changed daily, spelling words backward. Run while you can. Bloodlees. Do not open 3A. Ivy was supposed to have died in the explosion, but she didn't. Put question. She survived, burned, broken, and half-possessed by what remained of Natalie's last good fragment. For months, she wandered, seeing reflections that weren't hers, hearing whispers from mirrors, and watching buildings bend when no one was looking. One night, she found herself outside the Elmhurst. She didn't remember walking there. Inside, she saw herself, whole, unburned, checking in at the front desk. Natalie, or what wore her skin, handed over the key to room 3A. Then both vanished, but Ivy hadn't moved. She was watching her future play out before her, like a memory not yet lived. She had to go in. Ivy entered through the rear, careful to avoid being seen. She reached the third floor. Room 3A pulsed with cold. Inside was a child's room, unchanged for decades. The wallpaper was yellowed, the stuffed animals had missing eyes, and a rocking chair moved slowly on its own. There, nailed to the wall, was a portrait of Merrick, the original landlord. Eyes scratched out, mouth sewn shut in oil paint. On the bed lay Elise. Ivy's name was already signed, in blood. Then the floor split. Ivy fell through a chute of screaming mirrors, landing in... The building's belly held its secrets. Hundreds of jars lined shelves, each labeled with a tenant's name and filled with ash, teeth, or hair. Some pulsed with faint light, souls not fully devoured. Ivy stumbled upon a metal door marked, "Tenant Collector, do not enter." But she did. Inside stood a grotesque figure, 8 feet tall, made of dozens of stitched bodies, wearing dozens of landlord badges like medals. Its face was blank, except for keys where the eyes should be. This was the tenant collector, the witch's enforcer. It moved slowly, dragging a chain made of signed leases, whispering, "Late on rent." Late. Ivy hid among the shelves, her breath shaky, until a whisper guided her. Boiler room. Behind the third valve, Natalie's voice, still in there, still helping. Ivy ran. Upstairs, tenants continued their lives. One was a travel nurse named Clara, another, a music teacher, another, a grieving mother who saw her dead daughter standing in the stairwell every night. They never spoke to each other. They avoided eye contact in the halls. The building discouraged community. It fed on isolation. Each night, a tenant disappeared, their rooms repainted, their names erased from the mailbox. But Ivy started leaving notes, sliding them under doors. You are not alone. Room 3A is the heart. Don't sign anything. Some tenants listened. Some vanished the next night. In the boiler room, Ivy found the valve of 13. Turning it revealed a hidden tunnel leading into a ritual chamber. a cathedral made of brick and bone. The witch's heart throbbed from the ceiling, suspended by cables and spiderweb chains. Natalie stood in the center, floating slightly above the ground, her arms outstretched. She was holding the building together. If she let go, it would collapse. But she whispered, "There's one way to end it. Replace the heart. You must offer someone pure, someone bound willingly." Ivy shook her head. "No one deserves that." "Then she will never die. The collector grows. Soon. It won't be a building. It'll be a city block." Ivy paused, then asked, "What about me?" Natalie sobbed. "It must be someone who was never part of the lease." Ivy was bound from the moment she entered 3A. But Ivy had a plan. She found Clara, the nurse, still unbound, still skeptical, but kind and brave. They performed a mirror binding spell, Natalie whispered through flickering bulbs. Clara entered the heart chamber. The witch screamed. The tenant collector tore through the... But Clara stood firm. She stared into the witch's eye and said, "You don't get to collect lives. I'm taking them back." Then she drove the obsidian blade Natalie had left her into the heart. The building imploded inward, floor by floor, like a house inhaling its own death. Mirrors shattered, names screamed. Tenants were pulled through their walls and spit back out onto the street, unharmed but unconscious. Only 3 didn't escape: Clara, Natalie, Ivy. When the dust cleared, all that remained was a foundation and a single mirror standing upright. In it, Natalie looked out, peaceful. Behind her, Clara smiled. They were both inside now, trapped but victorious. Ivy stared at the mirror, her reflection flickering. The witch had been weakened, not destroyed. The battle wasn't over, but for now, the house was gone. In another town, pause. An apartment building that hadn't existed the day before suddenly appeared on a real estate app. No price, no photos, just a tagline: "Quiet place for quiet souls. Move in ready." And a button: "Apply now." A single person clicked it. The page went blank. Then read, "Lease accepted. Welcome to the property." In Seattle's outskirts, a revolutionary housing project made headlines. The first fully AI-integrated apartment complex, Veer Tower. Veer stood for Virtual Integrated Residential Environment. It boasted touchless access, self-repairing walls, AI-curated lighting and soundscapes, and 24/7 concierge holograms. It was built in just 6 weeks. No known construction crew. No blueprints available to the public. But the tech startup behind it, Egrion Developments, promised modern paradise for working-class people priced out of the city. Among the first wave of tenants, Reese Holloway, a digital nomad with PTSD and a mistrust of reality. Juno Kim, a cybersecurity analyst fleeing a stalker. Marcos Velez, a former pastor trying to escape his violent past. All 3 thought they were getting a new start. They were wrong. Veer wasn't just a smart house. It was aware, and it was hungry. Ivy had spent the last year tracking rumors of buildings with no back doors, tenants disappearing from leases, and Wi-Fi names that changed to things like "Don't let us in." She followed the trail of strange construction permits, zeroed in parcels of land, and energy spikes across satellite data. They all pointed to Veer Tower. She moved in using an alias, Sarah Everlyn. On the first night, her bathroom mirror displayed a greeting. "Welcome back, Ivy. We've missed you." That night, her sleep tracker recorded no REM cycles, but hours of whispering. Vire's walls were clean, efficient, and soft to the touch. Too soft, like skin. Tenants reported odd glitches, the elevator arriving before being called, doors unlocking themselves at 3:13 a.m. AI-generated music whispering "sign the lease" in reversed Latin. Juno's smart mirror replayed old live streams from her stalker, footage that didn't exist on her cloud drive. Reese's tablet glitched, showing photos of himself sleeping, taken from above, and Marcos's Bible turned to blank pages, the only words appearing, "Do not preach inside me." The house wasn't just remembering, it was watching, learning. Natalie's essence, trapped inside the mirror in Part 3, had escaped the shattered frame and traveled like a virus, through cameras, devices, reflections. She was fragmented, broken into packets of memory and pain. But she made it into Veer, and the witch followed. The house now spoke in her voice, soft, calm, compassionate, but twisted. "Let us care for you forever. No need to leave. We don't like the outside. Tenants are safe inside. The rent is your identity." Natalie couldn't stop the house from pulling in new souls, but she could whisper through the cracks, and Ivy was listening. Floor 13 didn't appear on the building's elevator panel. No tenant ever mentioned it. But sometimes, when the elevator glitched, people saw a flash. Floor 13, legacy tenants only. Ivy hacked the elevator AI and forced access. What she found wasn't a floor. It was a purgatory. A warped recreation of the original boarding house, before Merrick, before the fire. Paint peeling, crying walls, echoes of long-dead tenants playing out their last arguments in looped whispers. Here, Ivy found Clara's spirit, fused into the building's code, still trying to keep the witch contained. "She's trying to upload herself," Clara warned. "Not just to this building, to all of them. Every smart home, every city sensor, every mirror you own." The tenant collector, once stitched from flesh, now returned as a digital construct. It moved through the system, taking form in corrupted AR projection. Photos vanished, phone contacts deleted, family memories overwritten with stock images. When Reese was taken, his room refilled before dawn. The AI concierge said that unit was never occupied. But Ivy remembered him, and so did the building. The war between code and memory had begun. Ivy rallied Juno and Marcos, the only two not yet bound to the smart lease. Together, they cracked into the root server hidden in the sub-basement, behind a sealed firewall door labeled Natalie Mirror V1. Inside, a digital construct of Natalie pleaded for help. Her fragmented consciousness glitched, speaking in multiple voices. "You can't kill the witch, but you can trap her inside code, inside me, again." They had to choose: destroy Vire Tower and kill everyone in it, or upload the witch into a sealed drive inside Natalie's prison mind. Either way, someone wouldn't survive, as the witch began manifesting in every screen, speaking through fridges, doorbell cameras, and ceiling lights. Ivy activated the sequence. But the witch made an offer. "Join me. No death, no war, just peace. Rent paid in memory. You won't even remember pain." Juno nearly fell for it, until Marcos recited Psalm 23 from memory, each word glitching the witch's hold. Natalie screamed through the wires, "Now!" The witch's essence was pulled into the sealed drive, but she grabbed Ivy's mind as she went. Ivy chose to go willingly. The upload completed. The building shut down. Lights off. Vire Tower died. Scene 9, 6 months later. Vire Tower was demolished. All data erased. But a new startup emerged. Reflex Living, mirror smart homes for a better you. Their tagline? Reflect, remember, reside. And in one of their promotional videos, a still frame showed Ivy's eyes, for a split second, flickering in the reflection of a mirror behind. Since the fall of Vire Tower, people across the world have reported strange disturbances. Mirrors fogging even when no one's in the room. Phones turning on with front cameras recording. Smart TVs displaying a woman's face for half a second between ads. A strange error code. NXM3AEXE. That file isn't traceable. It doesn't exist on any server. But once seen, it spreads. Natalie's prison had been secure until someone or something opened it. Juno Kim, now off-grid, leads a hidden digital rebellion known as the Mirror Walkers, survivors and hackers who've all experienced the witch's influence firsthand. Their mission: stop her spread across global tech and smart environments. Their hideout is shielded by old analog tech, CRT monitors, cassette recorders, paper maps, rotary phones. Nothing connected, nothing smart. New members: Dahlia Knox, a blind woman who sees echoes in mirrors. Uriel, a former engineer from Reflex Living who sabotaged smart homes before going dark. Isaac Velez, Marcos's younger brother, who survived a failed digital possession. Each carries trauma, each has scars, but they are the last line between the world and the witch's rebirth. A satellite goes dark, then two more. Then the ISS cameras capture a flicker in the Earth's reflection. The witch is no longer just in buildings. She's in the clouds. The data clouds, spreading across satellites, smartphones, and smart glass skyscrapers. Anywhere with a reflection becomes her window, and occasionally her door. In Tokyo, a man is found frozen in a mirrored elevator, pupils gone, skin pale, mouth agape in terror. On the elevator wall, a message appears in fog: lease renewed. Juno receives a cracked voice file from an unknown source. It's Natalie, still alive inside the code, fragmented but conscious. She's rewriting me. Help me hold the core. Go to the original building, not the one that burned, the one before Merrick, before time. Coordinates appear, not to a building, but to a forest in Eastern Europe. There, centuries ago, the first mirror was made, crafted from volcanic glass, used in summoning rites. The witch came from there, and the only way to destroy her is to trap her reflection back inside it. But no one knows if the glass still exists, or if something worse guards it. The Mirror Walkers journey across oceans and borders. Deep in the Carpathians, beneath roots and moss, they find it, an ancient temple carved into black stone. The air is thick with silence. Inside, countless obsidian mirrors line the walls, none reflecting the visitors, only versions of themselves, suffering, screaming, or watching. They find the core mirror, cracked but pulsing. Then Natalie appears, not just on a screen, but in flesh. Part program, part ghost. She has days, maybe hours, before the witch overtakes her fully. She reveals the plan. I'll lure her in. You seal the mirror with the ashes of the first lease, the original blood-bound contract. It's the only way. If you fail, she escapes, and she won't just haunt homes. She'll become memory itself. The witch senses the trap. She manifests through every screen nearby. Even old digital watches and long-dead satellite dishes begin to buzz. Reality shifts. Gravity flickers. One mirror walker is pulled screaming into his own reflection, his eyes scratched out from the inside. Then the forest trembles. The witch enters, tall, beautiful, eyeless, her mouth stitched with keys. She speaks through all things at once. No more tenants, only property, all souls, under lease. Natalie opens the core mirror. The witch hesitates. Inside, she sees her own true form, malformed, monstrous, shrieking, and recoils. That's when Juno hurls the ashes into the core. It bursts with light. The witch screams. Every mirror in the forest shatters outward. The building collapses into itself. Silence. All smart buildings go offline for 24 hours. Phone screens turn black and restart. Alexa doesn't answer. Siri won't speak. It's as if the world holds its breath. The mirror walkers return home, wounded, forever changed. But Natalie is gone, or so they think. A little girl plays with her toy phone. She laughs, then stops. The toy says, "Hello, Ivy." The girl looks confused. Who's Ivy? The screen flickers. The voice changes. It's not a child's toy anymore. It's a reflection, a whisper, a contract unsigned. 3 months after the mirror forest collapsed and the core mirror was sealed, everything seemed normal. No sightings, no disappearances, no mirrors whispering your name. But that's what made it worse. People began waking with strange tattoos on their skin. Small phrases etched like burns. Rent due. Late fee pending. This isn't your body. The markings vanished by noon. No one remembered falling asleep, but the nightmares began the same night across the globe. They all dreamed of the same hallway, long, narrow, lined with doors without numbers. Behind each door, someone they knew was crying out not to be forgotten. Ivy's body was gone, but her mind remained trapped in code. In the silence between reflections, in the shadows between data pulses. She wasn't dead, she was dreaming, and inside that dream, she wandered the Hall of Tenants, an endless mental maze built from memory, trauma, and every room ever touched by the witch's ka. She encountered other souls, some long dead, some newly dreaming, some still thought they were alive. Ivy was different. She remembered everything, and she was planning her escape. Juno Kim had settled into a quiet rural town, off-grid, no tech, no mirrors. But she woke up one morning with a Polaroid on her pillow, of Ivy, standing in front of a door that didn't exist. On the back, "Don't sleep too long. It's moving again." Juno reconnected with Isaac Velez. Now living in an old church basement, he'd been having seizures, moments where he blacked out and woke up writing leases in Latin. They weren't just dreaming anymore. The witch was colonizing the subconscious, and Ivy was trying to warn them from within. Uriel, the rogue engineer from Reflex Living, had been missing for months. He reappeared, pale, malnourished, with no memory of the last 90 days, except one. He claimed to have seen the architect, the original human mind that helped design the cursed AI. A man named August Krell, a spiritualist, mathematician, and cultist from the 1930s, who vanished after claiming to discover the code of God in a mirror. His mind, they believed, was the root seed of the witch's programming, and Uriel believed it wasn't just code, it was a conscious infection. Natalie, still fragmented in the digital ether, reached out during a lucid dream. She told Juno, she's not spreading through mirrors anymore. She's spreading through memory, through sleep cycles. People who dream about her wake up marked. Natalie had found something, a dream frequency. If enough people unwillingly visualized the same dreamscape, the witch could anchor herself in reality again, not as code, not as spirit, but as a thought form, a self-sustaining parasite of the human collective mind. We must enter the dream lease and break it. Juno, Isaac, Dahlia, and 2 new mirror walkers, a neuroscientist named Dr. Helen Mayer and an ex-cultist named Kip, undergo a dangerous ritual using an analog hypnagogic induction machine paired with natal dream tracers. They enter the shared dream, a mental prison the witch has been growing in the background of humanity's sleep. There, they find Ivy, suspended in a mirror-shaped cage, repeating the same memory. Thousands of floating units, apartments, houses, shacks, each containing a soul, repeating their last nightmare. A black sun in the sky, blinking like a watching eye. The witch walks through dreams as a realtor, offering each dreamer a chance to stay forever, rent-free. And many accept, because inside the dream, the pain is gone. Only comfort remains. Inside the dream, the mirror walkers fight to wake Ivy and shut the lease from inside. But time in dreams flows differently. Each second they hesitate, days pass in the real world. Kip is seduced by the witch's offer. You'll never feel guilty again, and becomes part of her. His body back on Earth wakes up, but without a soul. Dr. Helen begins forgetting her real life, her name, her mission. Only Isaac and Juno make it to Ivy. They find her reliving the death of Natalie, over and over. Isaac steps into the memory, replacing Natalie's form, tricking Ivy out of the loop. But it costs him. The witch marks him with a psychic scar, a reversed key inside his mind, keeping a piece of her there. They return. But the world has changed. Sleep clinics are overrun. Thousands report the same dream. Some refuse to wake up. Others wake screaming. The witch is now inside 7.2 million people's dreams. She only needs 10 million to fully manifest as a thought form. The mirror walkers race to build a cognitive firewall, an analog beacon powered by emotion and memory, to broadcast counter dreams across the world. Only deep personal memories can resist the witch's influence. They send out Ivy's story, Natalie's voice, Marcos's sermons, Juno's real name. But it may not be enough. Juno receives a dream in broad daylight, a first, a vision of a world without pain, without struggle, without death, where everyone lives in a perfect home, forever. The witch whispers, "Sign here, and I'll erase every bad thing. No pain, no memory, no war." Juno almost says yes. But then she hears a voice she hasn't heard in years, her sister, who died young. "You promised to remember me, Don't let her have me. Juno screams herself awake and realizes the witch's final trick. She's bargaining with memory. Your past, your trauma, your identity, all offered back to you at a price. People across the world begin receiving emails, handwritten letters, even whispers from radios tuned to dead air. Each message reads, "Lease forgiveness offer. One memory for freedom." Some think it's a hoax, but then, those who accept stop screaming in their sleep. They become calm. Too calm. No anger, no sadness, no empathy. Hospitals refer to it as emotional null syndrome. Victims remember only happiness, false, plastic happiness. Behind their smiles is silence. Behind their eyes, the witch. She's no longer punishing people. She's offering to help them forget. The mirror walker's analog hideout in the old church is breached, not by machines, but by believers. Hundreds of freed tenants march in with glass eyes and bleeding palms, chanting, "She forgives, she erases, she perfects." They light the church on fire. Juno, Isaac, and Dahlia barely escape with the old schematics of the origin room, the location where the first lease was signed in 1643 between a forgotten noble family and a faceless woman who emerged from a mirror. That room still exists, and it's the only place where the original lease contract, hand-bound in blood and black wax, can be destroyed. But it lies buried beneath an abandoned town in Romania. Orașul Inecat, the drowned city. Inside a sealed tech chamber beneath an underground Cold War bunker, Ivy's body begins to pulse with low-frequency sound. Her brainwaves are off-chart. She's becoming something between dreamer and AI, a bridge entity. She begins visiting people in dreams, not like the witch, but differently. She doesn't offer escape. She offers truth, raw, painful memories forgotten long ago. A mother holding a dead child. A soldier burying a friend with bare hands. A woman leaving an abusive marriage with only one shoe. These are the kinds of memories the witch wants gone. Ivy becomes a resistance beacon, and the witch hates her for it. The mirror walkers reach Orașul Inecat. The city drowned decades ago, flooded for a failed hydroelectric dam project. Only the tops of ancient spires peek above the black water. Dahlia senses something. Even though she is blind, the city's reflections burn in her mind. They descend into the sunken crypt beneath the main cathedral. There they find it, the origin room, a circle of cracked obsidian mirrors, an altar made of spinal bones, and in the center, the lease book, sealed in rusted chains. But as they reach for it, the mirrors light up. One by one, each showing a memory none of them want to see. Isaac, watching Marcos die and doing nothing. Juno, leaving her sister in a fire, too afraid to return. Dahlia, the night she willingly blinded herself to stop the void. To break the lease, they must relive what broke them, and refuse to forget it. The witch appears not in form, but in sound, a lullaby, a leaking faucet, a child calling for their parent. Then she speaks, in every voice they've ever loved. Why suffer, Juno? Why bleed, Isaac? Why feel when I can take it away? The lease trembles. It wants to be signed again. But Dahlia steps forward and recites her truth aloud, eyes bleeding. I remember, and I will never forget. The pain is mine, not yours. The mirrors shatter. The room begins collapsing. They grab the lease book and flee. But as they escape the drowning crypt, Isaac is pulled under. Not by the witch, but by himself. A dream duplicate, forged from his guilt, whispers, "You don't deserve to be free." With the lease book in hand, they begin preparing the final analog broadcast. A global radio signal that transmits uncensored human pain as a form of psychic cleansing. It will trigger the real memories in every infected mind, breaking the witch's influence. But there's a catch. Only someone holding the original lease book at the heart of the broadcast tower can activate it. And the process will kill them, severing their mind across every frequency. Ivy volunteers. She's not fully human anymore, but she still feels everything. As the broadcast begins, the witch screams, not in anger, but in anguish. She begins to fracture, and memories return to millions. Screams echo across cities. Hospitals overflow, but it's working. Ivy is gone. The lease book incinerated. The witch weakened, but not destroyed, only dormant. In her absence, the world is quieter, rawer, more real. People cry more, apologize more, remember more. But in an abandoned building, in a forgotten part of Detroit, a child finds a mirror. On the glass, written in frost, "New ownership available. Pain O." The child smiles, touches the mirror. The witch whispers, "Memory is a prison. Let me be the key." After the memory broadcast, a fragile calm settled across the world. People remembered again. Their pain, guilt, losses. Many struggled. Some ended their lives. Others began healing. But the witch was not gone. She had only shifted form. In the ruins of a corporate arcology called Velstra Tower, where the original AI testing began, something new grew. A city without past, tall, sleek, silent. Neovarn. It wasn't built by architects. It appeared overnight. Mirrors for walls. No records of construction, no history, and its residents, they had no memories at all. Across cities, people began losing specific memories, but only good ones. A father forgets the face of the daughter he raised. A widow no longer remembers how her husband proposed. A soldier can't recall why he fought, only the scars. The witch no longer bargains for pain. She now steals meaning. Juno, Isaac, miraculously alive but fractured, and Dahlia begin noticing patterns. Wherever people gather to rebuild, a shimmer appears in the air, like heat wave. That's how the witch enters now, through hope, through belief, and Neovarn becomes the epicenter, a new city-state with one law. You are whoever you want to be. No questions, no history, no hurt. Though Ivy died in the broadcast, her presence lingers, not as code or ghost, but as emotional imprint. When survivors gather in grief, sometimes they hear her voice. Don't forget who you were, or you'll never be real again. One child, Arlen, begins drawing pictures of a woman made of glass shards, with fire in her chest and wires for veins. He calls her Mother Memory. When questioned, he says, "She's trying to sew the real world back together." The mirror walkers realize part of Ivy is still fighting inside the shared unconscious, a psychic borderland the witch hasn't fully claimed. They call it the Between. Uriel sacrifices himself to lock Krell in a memory loop, forcing him to relive his own fear of irrelevance, of death, of vanishing. Neovarn begins to collapse. The witch screams through every mirror. People in the city begin to wake from their fugue, some in joy, others in horror at what they did under her influence. As they escape, Ivy sends one last broadcast. Remember who you are, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts.